Hey, everybody, welcome to another episode of the Rock for Him podcast. I'm Jeremy, your host, and with me is my buddy, my brother in crime, my right hand man, Jason Sanchez Bukowski. How's it going, bro?
That's me.
Yeah, that's you.
I am doing good today. Doing real good. Excited for the show.
So am I. So, this has been a long time coming, but our guest tonight is none other than Divine Martyr. How's it going, guys?
How we doing?
What's up?
Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourselves and what you do in the band and all that good stuff? And tell us a little bit about the band.
Right on. Well, I'm Jason. I play guitar and do the occasional backing vocal.
And I'm Woody. I'm Woody, and I am the bassist and don't do any vocals.
At least not for the band.
You know, he should do vocals. He has a lovely voice. I'm the orchestration. I'm the drummer. Occasionally I do something with vocals, but usually it's very obscure through a lot of vocoding. So nothing live. But yes, I do all the above. So
Cool.
Very nice.
And missing is their lead vocalist, Olivia, who plays the electric cello.
Exactly. Yes.
Yes.
All right, cool.
Yep.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about the band, like how you came up with the name, where you guys are from, stuff like that. Why Mark keeps disappearing on us.
That will
Yeah,
never answer.
Yeah. So in 2015, 16, I think we're starting to forget the dates now. I'll have to see if I can find the old Craigslist post, probably out there somewhere. In like 2015 or 16, I posted an ad on Craigslist because I wanted to start a band, a Christian metal band. Kind of wanted it to be a little bit different. I didn't want it to be a worship band because there's plenty of CCM bands out there. And I was a relatively new bassist. I've only been playing bass now for about 9 years. So I thought, well, you know, kind of one of the things I'd always heard from people who are much more successful than I was get into a band as soon as you can. Like that's how you get a lot better. And so I started it, and Mark answered the ad, and we just started, playing. And we had a guitarist at the time. He lasted for about a month or two, and then we had to find a guitarist, right? I mean, I guess you could have like just a bass and drummer. Kind of interesting. I'm sure there are bands out there that do that, but Jason came along, and Jason, it was interesting for him because I had originally talked. So he was in a band called Torn Veil for quite a while, about 20 years ago, and his vocalist actually contacted me, and I didn't know he played for Torn Veil, his vocalist, and so Eric contacted me, and we started just kind of playing in the garage, and then it didn't work out. We didn't move forward with it. And then he told me he was in a band called Torn Veil, and I even remember going to checking out, the video to see Eric sing and stuff like that. And I noticed this pretty cool guitarist that was on there, and a bassist and drummer and stuff. All right, cool. Well, then 3 months later, I get this guy, Jason Hyde, wants to come and audition. So we get together, and I'm like, wait a minute, you look familiar. And I'm like, what bands have you been in before? He's like, well, I used to be in this band, and Torn Veil. I'm like, you're kidding me.
Small world, man.
Like I just saw you on a video. And I always use that as kind of like, I think that's where God just kind of puts people together.
Mm.
I don't really believe in coincidence. So yeah, it worked out. And then we've had a few vocalists. We had Darlene Parson at the very beginning, and then she left. And then we had Natalie Lefevre and Luke Mellinger. So like if you listen to Shatter the Doubt, you'll hear growls on that. That's Luke. And so Beyond as well. And then they left, and now we have Olivia. So not only is she our vocalist, but she also adds cello, which is perfect because as a symphonic band, we kind of want to have we wanted to have cello. We actually never thought about it. We always said violin, keyboardist. You can't find a keyboardist, at least not in Indianapolis area. So, not a rock, not a metal keyboard like you just
not for this style, and
can't find them.
And what's cool is Mark actually had reached out to Olivia originally, just with the idea of maybe she can do some studio cello for us or something, right? Because she's based in Ohio. She's never going to come and play for our band full time, but maybe we can use her for the studio. And then when Natalie left and we were, Sam's vocalist, we kind of reached out to her like, hey, we've got some shows coming up. Would you be interested in filling in? Because she's obviously a vocalist and a cellist. And she's like, yeah, that's cool. So we started rehearsing and everything just went really well. And so we kind of got to the point where, man, she's a really good fit. Maybe we should give her the invite, like the chances that she'll accept are pretty slim, but why not throw it out there? And lo and behold, she said, heck yeah, I'd love to do that. So just again, God and his provision, nothing happens by accident. This was all meant to be, and he orchestrated everything and helped all the details come together. So just incredibly blessed to have her on board.
It's honestly awesome to see how God does that. He works all the pieces to bring people together. I mean, like Jeremy and I, we have our mutual friend who's now in South Carolina, but we have been to so many shows at the same time. And we'll be talking about it like, oh, I've seen, these guys here. He's like, I was at that show. Oh, he's seen these guys. I was at that show. So, it's just kind of, God just works in mysterious ways. It's awesome how he brings people together.
That works.
Yeah. And it was cool at the time too, when I saw the ad that either Mark or Woody had posted on Facebook, and this is after the other guitarist had left. And I had just been praying for years and years, for a symphonic metal band with Christian brothers and sisters, and that's just not a very common thing that you're going to find, especially in Indiana or in the Midwest really at all. So, when I'm scrolling through and come across that ad, I mean, it just completely blew my mind, because I've been praying for that very specific thing for such a long time. And these guys they're already doing it, and God brought us together, and here we are. So pretty amazing.
It really is. So one of the things we like to do as part of the podcast is we like to get your testimony. Like, how did you guys become Christians?
Yep. Well, I mean, for me, I personally didn't grow up in the church, so I spent a lot of years just kind of running from God. And, I had sort of made up my mind that, I don't need that in my life. I grew up, I'd gone to a Catholic church as a kid. That was more of a kind of a formality, almost like hey, my mom and her siblings had gone there. So this was just like a thing that we're going to do. Right. I mean, the church wasn't really reinforced at home, so I didn't really necessarily have an upbringing in the church other than that. And, it's just one of those things where I just had decided I didn't need God in my life, and I'm going to do my own thing and whatever. And slowly but surely that kind of caught up with me as God does. He does little things to get our attention, and over time you kind of realize, man, there's a hole in my life that nothing else can fill, and you try all these other things. And I never got into drugs or drinking or anything like that, but just I'm going to make my own way and it's going to work. And obviously it doesn't. So I come to a place where I had met my future wife. I was, 19, 20 years old at that time. And, a blessing from God, she had grown up in the church, had a very strong faith. And, she was able to kind of introduce that into my life, the stuff that I had been missing, and kind of introduced me to God, started taking me to church. And, after all those years of running away, God finally got a hold of me. As he has a tendency to do, he doesn't give up on us. He doesn't turn away from us. And, he's always right there waiting for us, as stubborn as we try to be. He's always right there waiting for us. So I came to the Lord about 20, 21 years old, just right before my wife and I got married, and we've just kind of grown from there.
Nice. What about you, Woody?
I always grew up in a pretty strict household. pretty strict fundamentalist Christian home. So when I got married, I married my high school sweetheart when I was 19, and I didn't want to have anything to do with God. So I like pretty much I was just away from the faith until I always say I had to move to the most liberal state in the United States to find Jesus. So I moved to California, and and then ended up coming back to the faith then. And kind of had some tough times here and there. You kind of struggle sometimes with, I think, when you raise a child really strict, one of two things usually, or both things usually happen. Number one, your children get really good at just hiding things. And number two, you push them away. And I think that we have to raise our children up with a firm Christian foundation. But I also think that the kind of extreme fundamentalist side, where like you can't wear shorts because it's immodest, you can't go and swim with girls or whatever because that's immodest. Things like that is just, to me, is just ridiculous. It almost borderlines on the extremists of certain religions. And so I had a lot of real issues as an adult with that, just kind of dealing with all of that. And so it was really hard to kind of keep my faith with Christ. But I'm happy to say, that that's not really an issue anymore. And, just doing the good fight every day, So
Awesome. How about you, Mark?
I'm gonna send real quick. On Yoder Wi-Fi, so I'm very sick. So I apologize, but yeah, my backstory is I grew up in the church. Actually, I didn't actually make the decision to come forward to Christ until I think it was 11 or 12 years old, from the church camp, of all things. And so it's a great place to be if you're ever girls out there, go to a church camp. You have it's like a week-long youth group. It's definitely good for people to start taking their faith seriously and just know more about Jesus. But I think as far as like that, my story is like the usual. You have the high school rebellion, college rebellion. Ended up actually going to a different denomination, we'll say here, but more of more we'll say Israeli side of the aisle. We ended up I ended up just honestly, I still attend a non-denominational church, and so basically that's my story. In standing.
I knew that was going to happen.
Yeah,
he usually has, believe it or not, living out in the country, it's weird. He usually has like the best connection. I think this is the only interview we've had where he's actually been choppy. It's kind of odd.
Right, because his internet is questionable sometimes, but usually his cell signal's pretty solid typically. So
I sometimes wonder if it's actually depends on, like, Zoom is very popular. Businesses use them, but we've never had a problem with SteamYard, never had a problem with Skype or StreamYard, Skype. I don't know. It's weird.
Yeah, it depends on the day sometimes.
I guess Facebook even
does.
Well, we can always get back to Mark when he's got a little bit more stable connection. But let me ask you guys, what are the influences for you guys? Like, who do you guys look to musically?
Like me, I grew up, when I got into music, I had an older brother who was listening to like Van Halen, AC/DC, Iron Maiden, kind of that early 80s. And then as I got into music, it was notched up. So I got into Metallica, I got into Slayer, I got into that kind of stuff. And then from there I kind of graduated to death metal. It was Carcass and Cannibal Corpse, and keep in mind too, this is like pre-Jesus days, man. So it's full on like secular, the nastiest stuff you can imagine, really.
Right.
But musically though, that had an impact on me and my playing as I picked up a guitar at 15, 16. that's the stuff that kind of shaped my playing, right? So I come from a pretty extreme metal background, right? So this is my first outing into any sort of like melodic symphonic type of metal with Divine Martyr. It's actually, I mean, musically speaking, it's actually a little bit more tame than some of the stuff I've done in the past, but much more intricate and much more complex in terms of the arrangements and all that. But then, kind of from that point, I got into a lot of progressive music like Dream Theater, Fates Warning, that sort of stuff. And then from there, I actually discovered, Nightwish and Camelot, and really started getting into these, more symphonic melodic metal type stuff from, a lot of it's from Europe. It's really big over there. So it was really cool. The timing, I'd been listening to this stuff for probably 10 or 12 years. And like I said, that's really like musically, that's really where my concentration was, is on this symphonic stuff, but there's nobody around that does that. So, for God to bring these people into my life when he did, it was just, again, these things don't happen by accident. It's not a coincidence. I mean, he planned this all along. He brought us all up, down our individual musical paths so that we could all kind of converge, and Divine Martyr is obviously the result of all that. So it's been quite a journey.
What about you?
I'd say, but probably, I was like Jason a little bit in terms of like, I listened to a lot of Metallica and stuff when I was in football in high school and stuff like that. Once again, it's kind of interesting that it's like Jason came from a household that, like it sounds like his folks with the church and stuff, but they really didn't kind of propagate it within the family or whatever. But I mean, me being raised so strict, like I couldn't even listen to certain types of music. I had to listen to like pop music or stuff that did not give any indication of evil. Like listening to heavy metal growing up was like pretty much like not going to happen. I had to sneak around, listen to what I wanted to listen to, things like that. So, I mean, I listened to like Queensryche, but I didn't really get into Queensryche until I was like 17, 18. There's a lot of music. I mean, I'd listen to my friends like Motley Crue and stuff like that, kind of all the typical stuff growing up in the late 80s or 90s you would listen to, all the main secular top 40 bands and stuff. But then when I got out on my own, I really started kind of diversifying and whatnot. I think in terms of like inspiration to grab an instrument, it really was like, since I was a big Metallica fan, I really loved Cliff Burton. And I really like bass, obviously. I played guitar for a little while, but I really like bass and stuff. But I like the fact that I like bassists who can like really kind of mix guitar kind of playing with, do a lot of, basically not do a lot of runs. It's like it's kind of like I have anxiety on my bass sometimes. I will kind of be all over the place, even if it sounds like crap sometimes. Well, maybe not,
No comment.
but if, yeah, right, thanks. Yeah, just listen to any of our songs. To listen to that, there's a reason why bass is dropped really low in the mix, so
The truth comes out.
I don't know, man. That's kind of my big inspiration. But I've been all over the map, man. I've listened to, from the last 30 years, I've listened to Eminem, Tupac, all the way to Yanni. I've listened to I mean everything. Nightwish, Delane, you name it. I'm very eclectic. And yeah. So I'm a huge new metal kid. So totally 90s era. So I was a big fan of Korn. So all the butt rock bands like Disturbed and whatnot. So yeah. Butt rock.
I mean, you were hitting like all my inspirations, because back in the day I used to play bass also. The first song I ever learned how to play was Anesthesia.
Yeah.
Nice.
Like there was just something about that song, and just hearing Cliff go off on it. I mean, it was
It's one of his
magical.
greatest songs. Yeah.
Yeah.
One of his greatest songs he ever did. Yeah. Yeah. It's crazy, man. It's just thinking about, and I'm discovering new stuff all the time. Like,
Yeah.
I just discover new ways that things sound and try to incorporate it into music and stuff. So,
I mean, that's why I like listening to like anything Les Claypool will do. I mean, the things that man can do on bass
He's a
are
genius, man. Unbelievable.
yeah.
you ever listen to Charles Bertrand?
No.
He's got his own bass channel. This guy is like a tapping virtuoso. He's probably one of the most modern, talented bassists I've ever seen. Definitely professional. Does all of his work professionally. Just amazing. I mean, he can play Orion just tapping and like different levels of difficulty. He's just amazing. I don't know anyone else that I can think of that plays as well as he does. So just check him out.
Absolutely. What you got, Jeremy?
So let's talk about music. You guys just released Forever, your cover of Carrie Job, and we reviewed it more than once, and I think we absolutely love it.
We appreciate it, man.
So how many albums have you guys put out, or singles, or that kind of thing?
No albums. We've got the one EP that we released. Was that last summer, right? So that was kind of a compilation of, what was it, everything from 2018 to 2021, basically when Luke and Natalie were in the band. It's sort of like all that stuff had been released as singles, right? So we sort of compiled that, added an instrumental intro that hadn't been released yet, and we released that as an EP. So otherwise, everything that we've put out has just been, a series of singles. So yeah, that's kind of the goal now. And Mark's such a prolific writer. I mean, we've probably got 40 or 50 songs easily in the back catalog, and it's just a matter of fleshing those out. But our hope is to actually do a full length, God willing, we get all the finances and everything together, the logistics, and actually put a full length record together. So we started on a few of those songs where we have, drums and guitars and some things tracked, but we've got a ways to go on that. We don't really have a release date at this point. But again, as God provides the finances, we're kind of in a little bit of a pickle. We've been working with Reclaim the Day Studios the last 4 or 5 singles.
Yeah.
And, Marcus is actually off I think in the National Guard. He's off to boot camp for 6 months.
Yep.
And he's the engineer that we've been working with. So that kind of throws a wrench in our timeline that we had sort of laid out here the last, 6 months or so. So, we're kind of looking into some things and seeing, is there another studio we can work with? Do we, invest in some equipment, maybe try to track at home and find somebody else to mix, so we're kind of in limbo to a degree. But, again, there's a ton of music that's just kind of waiting to be made. We just need everything to sort of fall into place for that. So, we look at it as, God's given us this music, and it'll get out there in his timing, whatever that looks like. It could be a month, it could be a year. We just have to kind of be patient and let him work and just keep pushing forward in the meantime,
Right. How did you guys come to cover Forever? Because I mean, honestly, I'm a cover song nerd. Like, I love cover music. And admittedly, I never heard Carrie Job's version. I mean, I've heard a few of her songs, but never heard it.
Right.
And Jeremy was like, bro, you need to hear this song. So,
I mean,
I got the song, listened to it, and I was like, oh, her version. I was like, oh yeah, this is really good.
It's a powerful song. I mean, that's a song that I played on the worship team at my church, off and on for years when it first, 2014, something like that, it hit.
Yeah.
So I had played it a number of times in church and right around Easter. And for me, it was just always really impactful. I mean, I think she just as an artist is just one of the most genuine people out there. And I've actually gotten to see her live too. And she's incredible. She just has such a good, pure heart. And just
strong voice too.
Oh, incredible. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And that song in particular, just always, the lyrics and the melody and just kind of the driving nature of it, it just really landed with me. And so we had a few different worship songs kind of early on that we had tossed around, and that's one that we had played, and it just sort of stuck. And then when Olivia came on board, she was all about it too, and it seemed like the right time to just formally get that song down and get it out to the world. So
yeah. Well, when you guys dropped it after, Jeremy told me, hey, go listen to the song. I listened to Carrie Job's. And then he's like, okay, here's this one now. And I was like, oh, wow. Like, as good as I thought hers was, I mean, you guys crushed it. And Olivia's voice on there.
Thank you.
I mean, wow. Like, she does not slack in the vocal department at all.
Agreed, man. Like I said, we're incredibly blessed to have her on board. She's such a perfect fit, which is funny. I mean, because if you listen to some of her stuff out on YouTube, I mean, just some of the, the solo stuff that she's released is more of a pop flavor, right? I don't know if you guys have discovered any of that yet, but, so we were, maybe a little apprehensive coming in, like, is she going to be a good fit for this style of music? And she just knocked it out of the park, man. I mean, from the first note that she sang at that rehearsal, I mean, there was no doubt in my mind that she was just going to fit right in. So again, God knew what he was doing.
Absolutely.
We didn't honestly think that she was going to accept our offer to join the band. Right. I mean, I wouldn't have. I mean, I wouldn't have. I wouldn't have. I mean, I wouldn't travel 2.5 hours to come rehearse every other week. No way. Not for a non-paying band. I mean, yeah. I mean, if you're paying me, 6 figures a year to be in a major band, yeah, that's a different story. But if I'm making that much money, I could probably move. So, like, I wouldn't come just for for us ragtag crew of musicians, so,
right.
Shout outs to her. And she's got a very, very, very busy schedule. Her personal life is very busy, and trying to be a full-time college student and everything. So I have a lot of respect for people who can pull that off. I couldn't. She also has a little bit of youth on her side, unlike myself and Jason. Especially Jason. Jason's the old man of the group. So
come on now.
Nice.
Don't mislead people, Woody. That guy's at least 3 years older than I am, at least.
My birthday was yesterday, so I'm still in denial. So
well, happy birthday.
Happy late birthday, Woody.
Don't say that.
21 again.
It's not happy.
Oh man.
If you like what you saw today, hit the subscribe and like button down below, and don't forget to share it to all your friends. Also, leave us a comment down below. If you're gonna rock for him.